Alright guys, so we're back on this video of the hotshot couple that, their trucking business lasted about 6 months. Um, in the first segment of the video where they ended this was they discussed how they couldn't get their truck inspected, and brokers are now requesting or requiring that you have 2 previous inspections. And this couple made it sound like it was impossible to get their truck inspected. And that's, not the case. They just didn't figure out how to do it, is what happened. And so the idea of this video that I'm making is to help some of you guys see some of what they encountered. Even if you're not into hot shotting, a lot of the things, we all operate under the same rules. And so we all have similarly the same obstacles, and the same, fixes in most cases, because we're all carriers. In this video, they keep referring to hot shotting like it's its own industry. They keep saying, we got into the hot shot industry, and, I don't feel it's that way. We are all in the transportation industry. We all move freight. And whether it's hazardous freight, whether it's, you're doing it with a box truck, whether it's oversized, whatever it is, we're all regulated by the same organization, and we all use the same highways, and we use similar equipment. I mean, yes, a hot shot is a pickup truck with a trailer, a box truck is a straight truck, and most everybody else uses a semi truck, with the exception of the people that use the sprinter vans. We all haul freight of some sort or another. And so I think this is beneficial. Most of my subscribers seem to want to do the box truck market. And that's what it is. It's a market. It's a segment of the trucking industry. Anyway, so they just got finished talking about how they couldn't get their truck inspected. I just really don't see that was an obstacle. They just didn't know what to do. They really needed someone to guide and mentor them. In the beginning of the video, they said the gentleman on the right mentored them. I'm going to say it again, guys. Most of the mentors help you establish your business, and then you're on your own. And I'm going to tell you right now, setting up your business is the easy part. Anyone can, in an afternoon, fill out the required documentation, send everything off, and within a few weeks, you'll have your LLC, you'll have your EIN, you'll have your MC authority, everything will be active. That's the easy part. The hard part is picking the right equipment, knowing how to operate it, and knowing how to make money. And more importantly, knowing how to keep your money. Several other YouTubers use the phrase, and I totally agree with it. I've been saying it for years. It doesn't matter how much you make, it's how much you keep. Anyway, so let's roll into this. Again, this isn't intended to offend anyone. I'm thankful these people were willing to come on and make this video, because it directly points out and helps to show you guys how sometimes you go into this kind of blind, and there's sometimes very simple answers for it. You just got to know it is.
Or we had pre-pass. We got bypassed at way stations, and we pulled into them because we saw DOT officers there, and we're like, well, if they see our MC number,
you're going to have to.
We're a must inspect because we've never had an inspection. Nope, they just flat waved us through. So that was very frustrating as well.
Well, and the crazy part about it is, here you are saying the same thing. I have another driver out there, been out for a year, has never had a level 1 inspection. Never. I leased on 3 drivers 45 days ago and have had 8 inspections.
What?
Yes.
It's crazy.
I was begging for one. I had the best compliance book ever. My thing is tabbed like nobody's business. I wanted someone to look at it. I wanted someone to go, you know what? This is the best looking compliance book I've ever seen.
Right.
That's what I wanted. I needed my kudos. It's right here.
So look, we had
it's just beautiful.
our employment, truck, trailer, annual inspection, everything. Tabs. It looks like the one that you showed on that video. If you get your level 1.
Right.
Ready to go. And
Ready to go.
I'm on it.
Good.
Now
But you didn't get to show it to anybody.
Now it's going to go in the archives of what was.
All right. So now, where do you think things went south? Where do you think they went wrong?
There's a couple of issues that kind of compounded. Will you go plug that in?
Yes.
So we did not plan on buying an international from the get-go. We planned on getting an F450 and running like that. Well, if anybody's drove past a car lot in America, they'll know that they're basically bone dry, and the ones that they do have on the lot, they're charging you about $130,000.
Right.
Ford has a deal where if you order it on their website, the dealer has to honor that price when it comes in. So we were trying to save ourselves about $50,000.
We ordered it when? Well, how long ago did we order it?
We ordered it in March. So we started the business in February. We ordered it in March.
Okay.
We went down to...
We started the LLC. That was just the first start, not ready to go out on the road yet.
Yeah, we started the LLC in February.
Not operating.
When was the MC actually activated?
June 12th, I believe.
And when did you shut down?
Yeah. November 14th.
Yep.
Okay. I just want to add that to my note. But, okay,
So the truck was supposed to be in. Sorry, go ahead.
So okay, the truck was not going to come in. Okay, so instead of backing up, you sort of went forward and to the right.
Right.
I guess. You
That
know,
was
you
our
sort
first
of,
mistake.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's a mistake.
Yes.
I tell people not to rush. Don't rush, man. You don't rush it. And I believe that. There's something in me that says if this stuff comes down the pipe, it comes easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I only say that because everybody I've seen rush to get and push to get something done, it ends up being a problem. So, okay, so you ordered the truck, it wasn't coming in, so you went ahead and pushed forward and got the international.
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
So we got the international, we got the trailer, we started driving. Well, our first run, it was tough to find a load home because even though we were in Ohio, which is a good area for picking up loads, it was because our MC was not 60 days old.
Right.
So we found our neighbors actually are in the oil and gas industry, and they said that they have yards all over the place in Ohio. So I called them and they said, yes, we have a load that we need to get picked up and brought back to Oklahoma City. So we kind of lucked out on that one. Then we hit.
All right, so I let them talk a little bit. The first scenario where they're talking about wanting an F450 to hotshot, I personally feel, and this is just my own belief, and hotshotters will disagree with me, but I personally feel like if you need an F450 to tow your hotshot trailer, you're trying to tow too much, and you may as well jump into a semi-truck. Now, if we look at what the expense is at $150,000 for an F450, that buys a lot of semi. I don't know if I've ever shared or shown, I was buying my Mack trucks in packets of 4, and the package with 4 trucks was $80,000. So I could generate revenue with 4 individual trucks for about half of what these people are trying to get in debt for to get one hotshot truck that can't haul half of what one semi-truck can load. Do you guys see where that's going? So their loads were 16 to 18,000 pounds. A semi-truck can haul 46,000 without permits. That's just a regular load. And so $140,000 for an F450, plus let's say another $20,000 for a trailer, for that kind of money, I was purchasing a fleet of trucks. Now, okay, I have a lot of experience with trucks, and I knew what I was looking at, and I had a service department to go through them. I obviously had an upper hand, but do you see how not knowing anything about the industry makes you overpay for stuff? They bought in at the wrong time. If any of you watch my videos, when I said I was deactivating my authority, what were the things I said? The rates are going bad. The price of fuel is going up. And I said it would continue to go up throughout the rest of the year. And it wasn't going to come back down, you know, in 3 or 4 months like Joe Biden has been saying and still continues to say that, you know, we're going to see fuel relief anytime soon. And so if you watch that video, I said it really clearly. You know, a lot of people are overpaying for their equipment, and it's going to hurt. So my first thought here is the F450 was too much truck. The International was too much truck. They could have gotten a 1-ton dually and done the same job. Does the 1-ton dually struggle a little bit more when you get, you know, bigger 18,000 pound loads? Yes. But that's not what a hotshot's supposed to be. That's not the market you're supposed to be chasing. So you purposely overpaid for product, your equipment, to haul equipment that's not beneficial to you. What did they complain about in the previous video? In this video, but the one I recorded before, you know, their fuel mileage got hit when they were hauling upwards of 18,000 pounds. Well, of course. But the problem there is hauling upwards of 18,000 pounds should be relegated to semi-trucks. You should be focusing on smaller, true hotshot loads. Then they said, you know, they started the business because he knew of a place that needed hotshots, and then they ended up stuck in Ohio and they couldn't find anything back. And their way back on that particular trip was the neighbors in oil and gas, and they have yards all over the place. So they found a backhaul. Guys, before I would have bought the truck, I would have done some market research and looked for, okay, where I work, we carry parts for Boeing, and we have a need here for hotshot. But you know, we're in the middle of oil field country. I mean, that whole area of Oklahoma. I was actually going to open up a yard there because a friend of mine is a company man that moved from the Carlsbad area into the Oklahoma area. And he's kind of a big shot there now. We were looking at opening up a facility there. There's oil field there. I would have been out knocking on those doors. Do you guys use this service? We not only service local, we go over the road. And if Ohio is a market of theirs, I would have been on that vendor list before I got stranded. I would have been marketing before I put the truck on the road.
Our 60-day mark, and we actually started getting loads and making money, and it was awesome. And then we came back from one trip, and our truck had to go into the shop, and it wasn't serious, but the part that they needed was on back order because there's an issue with logistics in the country, right? When we got back on the road.
Okay, so I got to throw this out there. He believes the part wasn't available because there's a logistics issue, and he thinks logistics is trucking, and trucking is why the part isn't sitting on a shelf where it needs to be. There isn't a problem with transporting stuff across the country. There's a supply chain issue where manufacturers are not building certain parts because they are missing parts because certain factories either shut down due to COVID, and when they reopened, they didn't open at the same capacity, or they shut down and they did not survive. That's another part of the economy that's being affected. A lot of companies did not reopen after COVID. And, you know, an example, I guess you could say, is my company. COVID didn't exactly take us out, but it was an effect on us that made me make this decision. And so another thing with being newer to the trucking industry, he doesn't say what part they needed, but a lot of times, guys, if you take your truck to a dealership, they're going to install OEM parts directly from who they're required to purchase these parts from. It's very possible his part was available at Fleet Pride or Napa or, you know, any other, you know, local to you truck parts place. On the West Coast, we have a place called Franklin Truck Parts. A lot of parts are available through them. In El Paso, a big popular one was Wooford's. And so going to the dealer strands you sometimes because their part is unavailable. I had a similar thing happen where I'm working now. The air compressor went out on the truck, and oh, well, yeah, it's not available. It's like a week out. I picked up the phone, called Fleet Pride, which is 2 blocks away, and I'm like, Fleet Pride has it sitting on a shelf. They'll come deliver it. And the response I got was, no, we only go to the dealer. So the truck sat for 2 weeks. You just need to know the business, guys. These are things that hurt you, and they said it earlier in my previous video. You don't know what you don't know, and that's a component right there. A lot of parts that you need for your truck, if you can find a part number stamping on it, a lot of times you can drop that part number into Google and you'll see 5 or 6 different people that have it in stock. You call your local dealer or your local whoever you're getting the parts from, and oh yeah, we don't have it. I'll give you a perfect example. Detroit 60 series, before they went to the serpentine belt, where they run a separate belt that comes off of the crankshaft, and it runs, if I remember right, the alternator and the air conditioning on the passenger side. That's a bizarre little size. It takes 2 belts, and if you go to an O'Reilly's or someone like that, it's a rare part. They struggle to get it. It's $27. You take that same part number, drop it into Amazon, and it's a fraction of that. We ordered 10 of them, put them on a shelf, and our trucks did not sit because of that fan belt. You just need to learn and know these things.
The industry had changed the 60-day rule to 6 months and 2 inspections.
Yep.
And
That's what.
that was the stake in it right there, because we saw ourselves, we saw that we were
Bleeding
money essentially.
Right.
And we had to do a course correction before we were living in tents underneath an overpass. You know what I mean? And so that was.
Teresa Jean wouldn't let that happen because we didn't ever mix the 2 sides. Like I said before, personal was always separate than LLC, and I will tell anyone that does this to try and always keep that the reality.
Right.
And when I saw the writing on the wall, the course correction was only going one way. If I didn't want to touch the personal side.
Right.
Well, when you get ready to do this, I actually had a fellow veteran call me the other day and said, hey, got a truck, getting ready to go buy a trailer. And I talked to him for a few minutes, and I said, well, what is your goal here? What are you trying to do with a truck and a trailer? And he said, well, I think I can do it for $10,000 a week. That's what I said. I was like, well, good luck with that. I can't help you. He said, well, I'm not going to do it. I said, that's the best thing you've said since I started talking to you.
100%.
It's people. It seems to me that a lot of people jump out there expecting the pie in the sky. Your best week you ever had is how that's going to roll constantly.
No.
And that's not what happens. I keep telling everybody, look, traffic, weather, breakdowns, all this stuff affects your money.
Yep.
And
we honestly were prepared to be in the red for from our first year. We knew that. We knew we would be in the red our first year. We just expected to be working during that time. And because of that goalpost movement, really, I mean, because when you're waiting to get your operating authority, you already have equipment, because you have to have your equipment to get your operating authority, because you have to have your VINs, right? So then you're floating with your working capital right there to pay, because you're paying on things that you.
Okay, so I made a video recently on how you can set up your authority on the cheap. You do not need to buy your equipment before you can activate your authority. If we look at the times or the dates when they started versus when they finished, they were really close to that mark of the 6 months. They came pretty close to hitting that. The big thing they were missing was the 2 inspections, which was, you know, I'm going to say it was their mistake. They didn't know, and, you know, that's the hard part, because they just didn't know. Hey, just pull in and talk to someone and ask for an inspection. It's not that difficult. She says, we expected to work. They expected to work half the time, guys. They didn't have a plan to do this as a full-time gig, and they financed themselves to death. They took out a loan for the trailer, and then they took out a separate loan for the truck. And even me, with the different, you know, revenues I had coming in from the business, I did not finance one truck for that much money. That's an insane amount of money for a truck that's going to work half the time. And, you know, by their own statement, they weren't going to make enough money. The last thing is, you can't go into business expecting to lose money. You have to go in to make money. If you tell yourself, well, I know I'm going to lose money, we're going to go in on the red, you've kind of already told yourself, I've already failed and I'm accepting it. I'm just going to see how long I can do this before I run out of money. That to me is a mistake. And in fact, it's why I parked my trucks. Why run at a break even? That's what it was going to be for me. Running at a break even. Why? I make more money as a company driver than some of these box truck operators make running as an owner operator, but I don't have to pay for fuel, insurance, any of that. That's my money. And so you really have to sit down and look at what it is. Now, this idea about not blending your finance, I get it. I do. But I'll be the first to admit, I've taken a loan against the house before to make a big purchase to expand my business. That's something I have done. You know, people have asked me, Miguel, how in the world did you go from 2 trucks to 40 trucks? Well, someone didn't come put money in my pocket and said, here, go spend it. I did have to pull resources of my own to put in it, but I had financial statements to back up my plan. I was making money and I knew what I was doing. The hard part about oil field is it cycles. You have great years and then you have crap years. And so just like the gentleman on the right said, Brian, you know, when you force things, you sometimes make the wrong decision, and that's very true. You can't force this thing. You know, some people going out and spending $80,000 for a box truck that's got 450,000 miles on it, you know, that's a mistake. Just like the mistake these people made. Anyway, we'll continue on.
Aren't using.
Right. And then when they move that goalpost, now I'm cutting more into that working capital. And I can't tell you what the magic number for working capital is, but what I can say is, hindsight 2020, we would have been better suited to do it with something that was more a 450, something we could use
or
for
a Ram
home
3500
life.
like you've got.
Something that you could use for your home life, for a personal conveyance when you're not working, right? this was a specific truck that we're not going to go take to Walmart, right? We're not taking the semi to Walmart on our personal conveyance with your Motive app.
Right. And when that truck's not rolling, you're not earning.
No.
Exactly.
If it's not, it's either rolling or you're spending money. And those are the only two things, because the insurance, the truck, the trailer, everything else comes.
Right.
No matter what, whether that truck's sitting or it's moving, that comes.
And to take a step back to talk about, people that are thinking they're going to get the pie in the sky, we were totally comfortable with making enough money to cover to make the payments. That's what we expected. We didn't expect to come out here making $20,000 a month.
That's why I said the personal side was taken care of. Our bills, our house stuff, that's all taken care of. It didn't need this income to make it work. We needed, though, to at least make the payments.
Let me ask you, I know this is personal, but what were the payments on the truck trailer insurance?
So the truck was about $3,500
A month?
a month.
They would only do a 4-year loan.
Yeah, that's another good thing for people to know. If you're a new business and you go to get an equipment loan,
A business equipment loan.
they are going to take you the shortest term they can, which is 48 months, 4 years, and they're going to probably give you a 10% APR.
And we thought we would be able to cover that.
Okay, so because I've watched this before, I did some math, and that truck payment is a truck payment that you would make on a semi truck. But having said that, that truck payment, if you take a 4-year loan and you do 10% interest, that's about $140,000 finance. In other words, they financed $140,000 on that truck, which means they probably put another $15,000 or $20,000 down, because the other part is that's how they finance these vehicles. So again, they jumped into this bigger truck, which you can't get a personal loan on. They don't work that way. You guys jumping into the box trucks are experiencing the same thing, I'm sure. You can't walk up to, Ford, GM, or Ram and say, I want that 0% interest. They don't operate that way. And so they were hard set on the idea of not financing in their personal name. They did it in the business name, which means they got worse interest. And by the way, 4 years is the norm for a commercial loan. When he said they're going to squeeze you down to 4 years, when you see these trucks rolling down the highway for Swift, Knight, Schneider, Warner, those trucks are not financed for 6 and 7 years, guys. They're financed for 4. And there's a specific reason for that. At the end of 4 years, they sell these things, trade them in, whatever it may be, and because of their buying power, what ends up happening is the truck is paid for, but they take that value in that truck, the trade-in value, whatever you want to call it, they take that money and apply it as a down payment on the next truck. And so instead of financing $150,000, they're probably financing $60,000, whatever the balance is between what they purchased and what they sold the first truck for. This is how business works. When a lot of people tell you, oh, I'm making all this money with my box truck or with my hotshot, what they're not keeping in mind is this business is not just a matter of looking at your balance sheet, your profit loss statement. You have to take into account your balance sheet. Your balance sheet is important because it's depreciating, which means you're paying into it when you make payments, but every day it's worth less. Again, if you watch my video why I parked my trucks, this was a key component. My fleet value, my balance sheet was going to lose 70% of what its fair market value was at that point in time. In other words, because the trucks were overinflated in price, I could sell them for way more than we had them valued on the books. And so that made a whole lot of sense for us. In the case of these people, they bought at the worst time, which is what I told you guys I did not want to do for myself. I didn't want to go out and pay $80,000 for a truck that I normally pay $20,000 for, and then go run for fuel that's twice as much as it was last year and get rates that are, 40% reduced compared to last year. It's a numbers thing, and we have to understand that part. These people fell in the backside of that trap that I strategically avoided. That's why I made that decision to park my trucks. These people are on the backside of that. Why I've told some of you guys this isn't time. Now, the biggest component still, the big elephant in the room is they needed to work every day. You weren't going to survive this thing working half the time.
Yes.
We had some working capital we started with, so we knew we'd have to float some here and there. But
Right.
we thought we would be working. And like we said, we didn't expect to make profit. We were just going to make the payments. Trailers, 1,000.
Trailers, 1,000.
That was
okay,
60.
and insurance, 900, you said?
About-
Under
It was
Yeah.
nine. It was 950.
950, just to be fair.
950. Okay, so now, that's a lot. That's a big nut to have to crack every month.
Yeah.
Now,
We thought 6,000.
let me throw this at you real quick. And I just want to do a comparison for those who are out there. That is $5,450 a month,
Not including fuel.
not including fuel. That's just the nut. That's if it's sitting still.
That's right.
All right. So the difference between what you did and what I did was this. I bought the truck personally.
Mm-hmm.
I leased the truck to the company. Okay. So I got 3% interest on that loan. Then I just leased it to the company for $1. Okay. So that's where that was. Now, my truck payment's $850 a month.
Mm-hmm.
I paid for the trailer cash.
Okay.
Okay. And my insurance is $1,350 a month. So that brings me right in that $2,000 range
Right.
of the nut I have to crack. And it must be me because I always run around very, very scared when I go into debt. And I'm like, well, I think I can go to Walmart and pay that off. If I have to go work at Walmart, I can make that happen.
I love his comment about Walmart, guys. I'm the same way. When I had my equipment rental business, we were in debt to the tune of over $4 million. Our monthly payments for everything, trucks, trailers, service trucks, equipment, was close to $40,000 a month. And that's all fine and dandy as long as the economy is moving. But then we had something called the recession back in the early 2000s. And let me tell you, no matter how much money you have in the bank, when you start getting that $40,000 a month hit, it's not a matter of too long before you're out of debt. I'm sorry, before you're out of money. I wish I was out of debt. And so when I started the trucking business, I did something similar to what he's saying. Some of the first equipment that we purchased, not trucks, not our big rigs, but the pickup trucks. I purchased those financed through myself because I could get way better interest than the business ever could. That's where the incentives are, guys. When you go finance something, you can walk in and get 0% interest if it's available personally, but the very same truck, no matter how good your company credit is, they will not offer it because they feel like if you're a business, you're going to buy anyways. And if you're an individual, you might be sitting on the fence, not really too sure if you want to buy. You're happy with your 5-year-old truck now, but we're going to offer you 0% interest, so here you come. Now, his statement where I could go to Walmart and make the payments, that's, you know when someone has the right mindset because you realize that's exactly what I say. And I've told my family, look, I can make these payments if I go get a job, just like I've done now. I went and took a job and I'm able to pay the household payments, no problem. They had a thing of beauty where all of their personal bills were covered by money that was coming in already. She had a retirement. They both had like some kind of disability payment coming. That part was great. But this thing where they're only going to work 2 weeks and like $2,500+ is gone before you even do anything. And then you still got to pay for fuel. And then they're staying in hotels. There was just a lot of really bad decision making. They could have survived in spite of the fact that financially they made a mess of it by buying this truck. They could have survived had they gone and done, 3 weeks out, 1 week off. They would have made enough money. But the way they were doing it, a week in, a week out, a week in, a week out, they stapled themselves to the wall where unless something landed in their mouth, they couldn't eat. That is a killer.
But my thought was, well, maybe, if I make 2 or 3 runs a month, I can pay that off and it won't be any big deal. So that's where my thought was.
Right.
In hindsight, let's talk about it. In hindsight, you've got 20/20 vision right now. And in hindsight, what would you do different?
A Ram 350.
First, we would have bought a power unit that was not so vocational or niche. When we made the decision to we were going to dissolve the trucking portion of our business, we said, okay, let's go try and sell this thing. It was impossible to get somebody to even consider it.
Wow.
Because it's just so, there's 1% of the population is going to use the truck that we had. Whereas with your truck, you can take that to basically any dealership and get a fair price on it.
We were able to get offloaded though.
Yes.
And
we had to make a sacrifice. I had a F-250 that I had a ton of equity in, and I love that truck. And we traded the International and my F-250 in and bought a new F-250, but the old F-250 covered the negative equity of the new one, of the big truck. And that was...
Okay, so, I'm no one to tell them how to live their personal lives, but here's my belief, guys, and it's just me. If my old 55-year-old butt can get out and work to earn a living, so can my personal vehicle. And probably with the exception of my wife's Tahoe, everything else works. By that I mean my wife's Tahoe, I don't go pulling a trailer with it. But, my Ram pickup trucks, the F-150 that my daughter now drives, that one was one of my salesman's trucks. We had another F-150 that we sold and a couple other vehicles. Everything can go to work. Now, he just stated that he had an F-250 that he loved and he traded it in. Now, again, without knowing more details, to me it seems like if that F-250 were a diesel, I would have bought a lighter duty trailer and started my hotshotting with that. I would have started my trucking business with a pickup truck that I already owned and probably had dirt cheap payments on. And again, that's the vehicle they could have used to start their authority earlier, and their authority would have been aged by the time they had all of their equipment. What's wrong with putting the F-250 on the insurance? Nothing. Even if you didn't have the trailer yet, it doesn't matter. They could have started it with the F-250. Now, they went and traded it in, and he got another F-250. If it were me, and I was in the hotshot world, and I thought to myself, I might in the future want to do this again. Why not buy an F350? Even if it's just a single rear wheel, get yourself an F350 that can still operate and pull a lighter duty trailer, and you can get back into the business and run leaner. Their biggest problem is they had too much debt. They didn't want to work enough to pay for the debt. So you had to either lean the ship or work more. Why not trade the truck in and do something that's more usable? Again, that's their personal life. That's their personal decision. But if it were me, I would have thought that way. That's what I would have done. My hot shots were lighter duty because they were all short haul, just running in the oil field. I ran only 3/4 ton, guys, because when you drop that trailer, the 3/4 ton truck no longer being attached to a trailer is no longer a commercial motor vehicle, and I could jump in that pickup truck and drive home 1,000 miles nonstop, and no one can say a word to me. It was completely legal. So, what's another issue? When they went to sell their truck and they couldn't find a buyer, they went to sell the truck towards the end of the year, if you saw when they stopped. The issue is a lot of the people that would buy that type of truck is going to be your older people that are retiring, your snowbirds that hook up their fifth wheel and they go down to Arizona or Florida or whatever and they camp. The thing of it is, around November, they've already got their year's, vacation or year's travel planned. That truck goes on sale in spring. That truck has a market after winter. The other thing they should have done is gone to a couple of the websites where a lot of these guys are using medium and heavy duty trucks to pull their RVs. You could have just posted it there and it would have developed a bunch of interest, but you needed to know, like he said, it's a niche. He called it a vocational truck. You could kind of say it is. A vocational truck is basically something that's kind of specifically built for something. But had they gone that route, they probably would have found an interested buyer. And that's neither here nor there now, because they traded it in for another truck. Personally, that other truck, if it was a diesel, probably should have been what they started with.
That was the only way to get it done. Because you have to buy something from these dealers in order for them to.
Right. So, what else you got?
I would have been patient.
You would have been patient and
so
waited.
That's the other thing. The 450 might have. So he was very determined about the F450. There are other options out there, and somebody who might be getting into this game, maybe they're a Ford guy. Well, they need to get out of their Ford guy ways
100%.
and maybe look at a Ram 350.
3,500.
Whatever, 3,500, whatever. A Ram?
A Ram?
Okay. Stop, just, don't be so myopic that we have to have a Ford.
Right.
And there were cars out there, and we could have gone and got like you said, like I said earlier, a car that was usable beyond just the business.
Right. Well,
And so, very valid point. It's a very valid point. But there is a backside to that. So, my whole life working as an employee for other companies, the companies I worked for kept buying Fords and Fords and Fords and Fords. And honestly, I almost became tired of them. I was kind of a Ford guy as a teenager. And then everybody that I worked for had Fords. And I kind of got a little bit tired of them. But when I went to open my first business, the equipment rental business, and I started shopping for I needed pickup trucks to both go do service calls and to help deliver them with smaller trailers. Ford had the better package to buy the truck. So in my mind, back in that era, the GM Duramax had just come out, and it wasn't. I Actually, it was just before the Duramax came out. So I had no knowledge of the Duramax. I didn't know what it was. And so to me, it was Dodge or Ford. Dodge just didn't have the financing I needed. Ford did. And so the first purchase was a Ford, and the next purchase was a Ford. And finally, like the third or fourth purchase, I got a Ram. And then I got, like in '04, I got a Duramax. Anyway, so I ended up with a whole bunch of Ford 6.0s. And if any of you know what those are, you know I went through all kinds of trouble. I almost went bankrupt because I had 5 of these pickup trucks, and all 5 of them were at the dealerships getting head gaskets done, and all of them combined were down for like 4 months. I almost went bankrupt because I ended up not being able to do a whole bunch of stuff. And so I told myself I'd never buy another Ford. Lo and behold, when we started the trucking business, you know, who was the easiest to go get the financing through? Ford. And so in 2012, we bought an F-250, an F-150, and a GMC Sierra, I believe it was. Anyway, and sure enough, sooner or later, that Ford gave me troubles, gave me problems, and to this day, that truck only hit 145,000 miles. No one wanted to drive it. And so the mindset of, I don't like this product because of this, you have to take into account how it will affect your business. It cannot be, you know, well, I think the Ram is ugly. You know, I didn't particularly think my Macs were good looking, but they're a tool. They're a business tool, more importantly. And so it boils down to what you can make money with. What you like personally is kind of irrelevant to what's going to make you money. And so her statement is true in that you can't have the mindset of, I'm not going to consider one product versus the other because I'm a Ford guy or I'm a Chevy guy or whatever. But at the same time, if you know there's a product that's just not a good product, you know, some of the Navistar motors are problematic, and a big chunk of them go back to the Ford. The 6.0 and the 6.4 were the same engines that people say, oh yeah, well, stay away from the Max Force. If it's a V8 Max Force in that box truck, guys, that's one of the same engines that almost put me out of business. And so, yes, you do need to have some knowledge, and if you know something's a bad product, you just stay away. But at the same time, like she said, don't put the blinders on, and don't tell yourself, I'm not going to go buy this because I don't like the product. It's a business decision. I've bought trucks that I outright didn't like. I thought it was an ugly truck, but I still bought it, and it made me money.
So, is there any last words? Anything else? We got about 4 minutes.
I'll just, and this is kind of,
Okay, sorry about that. He kind of goes off the track here a little bit. I do it all the time, obviously, but he goes to talk about how at the truck driving school he went to, you know, they liked them because they were hardworking and they stayed focused and yada yada yada. They go on to say that, you know, if they come back, they may not go on their own authority. And, you know, the gentleman here on the right says, well, if you come back, you'll come work for me. And that's all fine and dandy. Honestly, guys, I don't think having their own authority is what hurt them. They could have used a strong mentor that, you know, could have helped them through some of these bad decisions. Honestly, if they're going to buy the wrong truck and overpay and everything else, that's not going to make any difference if they're running under someone else's authority. Now, if you're going to run under someone else's authority, you know, any of you, I suggest you pick a company that has more than 20 power units. Now, why is that? Well, because when you have 20 power units, there are a handful of companies out there that no longer look at your CSA score as the defining moment, if you will, on how to rate you. they base it more on claims. And so to give you guys an idea, when I ran my hotshot pickup trucks, we were paying $2,500 a year for the trucks. Our big rigs, when I had over 20 power units on the policy, were like $5,400 for the year. And if you compare that to what current day quotes are, that's extremely cheap. And some of you are going to say, oh, who's your agent? Let me go get that same deal. You have to have 20 power units, and you do have to have an authority that's a little bit older. If it's your first year, it's not going to matter. But these are things that will make a difference when you go decide to run under somebody else. I don't think running under their own authority hurt them. I mean, it did in the sense that they haven't been around the block enough times, you know, and I'm not trying to make it sound like I know it all, because I don't. Even now working for this company hauling hazardous materials internationally, I'm learning stuff here. And honestly, I might consider doing a little hazmat trucking independently. I might put a truck or two on the road, and I think I understand it a little bit now that I've been doing this, but I don't know that I will. Anyway, I don't think their big flaw is that their authority was new. Their big flaw was they didn't understand the big picture of this industry, and they took everyone's word that, well, that's just how it is. You know, oh, well, they have to pull us in and inspect us because we're new. No, they don't have to. Oh, well, I need 2 inspections and they won't pull me in. You can pull in. You know, we're going to be home a week and gone a week. Guys, if you go to any of the groups on Facebook, and I know a lot of you guys are there because some of you find me and comment, hey, I see your channel. If you go to those and you see people asking or commenting, hey, well, I already have a pickup truck. I kind of want a hot shot on the weekends. Or, you know, I'm a fireman. I get 4 days off a week. I want to go do some running. This isn't a part-time gig, and this video kind of drives that home. This couple took a pretty hard financial hit. I mean, luckily, like she said, because they did not blend their finances, you know, looks like the biggest hit is now he's got a brand new truck that he's probably paying way more money for. And, you know, honestly, if he really loved his old truck that much, he may not even like the new one. Who knows? But anyways, guys, I hope this video is enlightening. I hope it helps you guys see some of the things that, you know, are potential landmines for a lot of new authorities coming into this. I often get told that, you know, I could make a whole lot of money mentoring and offering, you know, consulting, you know, if I was a little bit more positive about how to do it. The thing of it is, I don't want to sell you guys, you know, that pipe dream and here you paid me for this advice so I can tell you to go in and get in and end up like this couple. I'd rather just say how it is, and if I help you get started and grow, awesome. If I steer you away from a potential disaster, awesome. But I do it out of just the want to help others. I don't ask people for money for this thing, really. Anyways, as always, guys, thanks for watching. You can obviously search this video out and see the whole thing uninterrupted by my annoying voice, and kind of hear the whole thing through and, you know, have your own takeaways on it.